Hello and welcome to the Car Care channel, and welcome to this 1995 Toyota Land Cruiser 80 Series. Folks, the Land Cruiser is one of the hallmark names for Toyota, and this one, for some time, this generation, was actually flying under the radar. People were not very interested in them. However, if you are one of those people who are not interested, you are very mistaken. This is the last great true Land Cruiser. These were not built as luxury cars as the newer ones are. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with the newer ones, but this was a true old school Land Cruiser. They are so nice. And more important than that, this particular one in this beautiful color, one of my favorite colors for the 80 Series Land Cruiser, is just such a pristine condition. And it doesn't have 20, 30,000 miles. It has 200,000 miles, and it is like in showroom condition. It's beautiful. In this video, we're going to check this thing out. We're going to look inside of it, under the hood, around it, underneath it, so you can get some information on this beautiful generation of Land Cruiser right after this. Let's check out the Land Cruiser. This is probably one of my favorite Land Cruisers, just secretly, I have to say it. So look at this front end. I mean, I said it in another video, car design, the simpler things are, the better they look, the more emphasis on the small details. I mean, there's not much going on here, yet it looks epic. Very simple headlights, glass headlights, not plastic. Very simple grille, Toyota logo in the middle, yet it just looks wonderful. These are real metal bumpers that actually come off, and this is something that brought this truck to our shop. These were starting to show some rust, so we replaced these with originals, replaced the nuts, cleaned underneath them, and it just looks factory beautiful. Let's wrap around this truck and look at some of the other details. Now, the wheels. I just love the design of this wheel. It's not a big wheel, but it just looks right. Fits the overall body shape of this truck so well. And then the fender arches. Some of these in the early years, they did not have the fender arches. They just were plain. I think that with the fender arches, they look much better. It's just my personal opinion. Of course, this is a car from the 90s. We have the automatic antenna that goes up and down. And then just the simplicity of things. I mean, look here, the cowl. This is metal and it's body color. There's no cars like this anymore. This beautiful green color, I love it. Then the mirrors, we don't have aerodynamic. This is basically a giant box going down the street. So the mirrors are large and unaerodynamic. And again, they don't make cars like this. We come to the handles. Just the sound of quality. And look at the overall design. It's just, there's nothing. There's just one line going across and everything is flat. Less is more. Look at the side profile. This cannot be mistaken for anything but a Land Cruiser. And this exact corner takes cue from the previous generation of Land Cruiser. This side opening glass, sliding glass, everything this thing is in such good shape for its age and its miles. It's truly well preserved. Of course, this is a US model, so we have the not so pretty side marker here. This was the times where this was a requirement and they couldn't integrate it anywhere else. And then we wrap around this thing, look at the back. I mean, the simplicity here is just mind-blowing in the design and how beautiful it looks. First, the taillight, exposed bolts, because why not? What's wrong with exposed bolts? They didn't think that was a problem back in those days. And then the metal. Everything is metal. There's no plasticky plastic. And then the old school Toyota emblem, which should hide a key. We don't want to push it. There it is. These were the cool tricks of the past, where the keyhole is hidden behind the Toyota logo. Then we look at the back. Of course, the split tailgate. This is something that even till today they still have with the Land Cruiser, even the latest generation, except the 300 series kind of lost that. And a lot of people are very upset about that, and I'm with them. This is just beautiful. And these also, just like the 100 series, just like the 200 series, third row seats would be in the side. I know it's not the best thing for storage, but it's a hallmark of the Land Cruiser. These are removed. This does have the third row seats. They are removed. We have a WeatherTech mat here, but just look how clean this thing is. That is the beauty also of this particular one. It's just in such pristine condition, and everything you look at. And the one thing that these said, they didn't just say four-wheel drive, it says full-time four-wheel drive, in case you were not paying attention. But then there's something else about this. How subtly it says Toyota in small print, Land Cruiser, bigger print, because that's the important part, not the Toyota one. Let's check out the inside of this beautiful Land Cruiser. Now, one note I will say, the inside, the seats, they have been redone on this one. But even though they have been redone, I mean, things are very simple and very beautiful here. Such a pristine condition. Everything is so well kept. I mean, look how clean that carpet is. Look how clean everything is. It's a really, truly preserved truck. And then we look at the front. This is just classic Land Cruiser at its best. I mean, this dash is, some cars will have, they try to mimic this feel. Small dash, and it just comes down, it just feels like a truck. Automatic transmission, of course, manually shifted transfer case, manual parking brake, very simple center console. You have so much room, like the seat is not huge, so everything is like very roomy in here. Old school clock, old school radio, of course, all manual controls. This is not the era of screens. The biggest screen you have is this tiny little one for the radio, and that's about it. This, of course, was a later model with very nice features like airbags, passenger and driver. Folks, things here are so simple, and just after you get into so many modern cars with all their features and screens and touch this and touch that, you get into something like this, you really appreciate it, how simple cars used to be and how just beautifully made they are. You look at something like this, little cup holder. We don't talk about cup holders, but we have to make a mention for this one, because these were the times, the eras that cup holders were not a thing. But then Land Cruisers have more stuff. There's two dedicated buttons here to raise and lower the antenna, just like the 100 series. This one also has that. I mean, they made two full dedicated buttons just to raise the antenna and lower it. Even though every time you turn on the radio, the antenna will come up, but you still can adjust it in case you're in an off-roading situation. You can actually lower your antenna in a lower position so you can clear objects without losing your radio reception. This is such a beautiful, preserved interior. Yes, the seats have been done, but I approve. This is so beautiful. Even the sticker on the door is still there for a differential lock and some warnings about it. This is just so preserved. 204,000 miles, 555. Not like 20,000 miles or anything. Let's go check things under the hood. And even though we are in 1995, hood shocks, folks. And before we continue, if you hear a lot of noise in the background, our neighbors, they're good people, but they decided to test their go-kart right now when we're filming. So excuse the noise in the background. This beautiful sight is an inline six, 4.5 liters, 1FZ FE. Kind of a one-of-a-kind engine for the Land Cruiser, because I don't recall another model coming with an engine like this. And the other thing that I'd like to say, this engine is massive. I mean, just look at this. You know, you go look at a 2JZ, 1JZ, 7M inline sixes. They're not this big. This thing is enormous. I have been inside one of them that overheated and blew the head gasket. I mean, removing this cylinder here, you literally need a cherry picker to pick up. It's so heavy, and everything here is so big and overdone. It is unbelievable. And as far as problems with this engine, other than the common, leaks from age, valve cover gasket loves to leak. Pretty kind of massive undertaking to do it because there's a lot of vacuum hoses and a lot of stuff. It's such a massive valve cover to do. But let's look at some of the details from this era. Of course, this is typical Land Cruiser. Look at this massive radiator here, how overbuilt everything is. You got a little cover for the battery right here. Everything here you touch and you look at is overbuilt, down to the smallest details. If you look at the drive belts, this car actually has 3 drive belts, but 2 of them drive exactly the same thing. In case one of these belts break, and they are V belts, they're not serpentine belts, in case one of these belts break, you have a spare one that is already driving at the same time, and then the last one for the AC compressor, because you know, if the AC compressor belt breaks, not the end of the world, you can roll without AC, but in case the important one breaks, you have 2 of them just in case. What a timeless view right here, folks. Look at this air filter. This was the days where we were still transitioning from carburetors, so the air filter shapes were strange and kind of that round shape and this style nut where we're still transitioning. This is possibly one of the most reliable, most underrated engines ever. It's not really a performance engine, it doesn't make a lot of power, but it is just a tank. You could put this in a tank and it'll keep going forever, literally. Distributor, of course, these are relics from the past. Distributor and spark plug wires, you don't see those anymore. And this is just the way they did things. But this engine was actually groundbreaking in its time because it was fuel injected. And these were the early days of fuel injection where we had so many complications because they have not figured out electronic throttle. So they had cables, but then the cables were attached to sensor throttle, position sensor, and all these sensors just to get the computer to know how much you're pressing the throttle. All this is here. There's a sea of vacuum hoses and everything. And of course, like old school Toyotas, if you look all the way in the back here, you have a heater valve. And that's one of the things that have been replaced and with warm clamps, our least favorite thing. This is a heater valve to keep when you turn on the AC, this were the days where AC systems were not as efficient as current day AC systems, so they had to isolate the heater core so the AC performance would be good. This was also groundbreaking that it has R134A. This does not have R12, which is pretty cool. But one last Toyota old school touch before we look underneath it. The wiper motor is right here. This is not some wiper motor that is buried underneath the cowl or whatnot. It's right here. Super simple to replace. This engine is one thing I have to be said about it. It is simple to work on because you have tons of room. I mean, this is a pretty big truck, but everything is extremely heavy. If you have to pull a cylinder head out of this, it's extremely heavy. It is a timing chain engine, so you don't have to worry about a timing belt, unlike the following generation Land Cruiser, which had a timing belt. But this is the beautiful thing about Land Cruisers. Every engine and drivetrain that comes in these is something just special. What followed this is the 4.7 liter UZ series engine, a beautiful bulletproof engine. And here's another one. You cannot go wrong, folks, buying a Land Cruiser because they usually are overbuilt, over-engineered, and everything is just built to last. Having said that, let's put this thing on the lift. Let's look underneath it so we continue our tour of it. Take a look underneath the 80 series Land Cruiser. Folks, this is a completely different generation of Land Cruiser. This is where they were truly a truck. And they rode like one, felt like one, and they were designed like one. I mean, just look at the front here. You have this magnificent view, a solid front axle. This was the last Land Cruiser to have a solid front axle, and the complication that comes with it is enormous. We have seals that are actually leaky on this one. If you look right here, this is how this giant ball is how it allows the steering to turn, and it has a seal right here that keeps the grease in. Well, that seal have seen better days, especially on the other side where it's actually hemorrhaging grease out. This is going to need to be taken care of pretty soon here because it's even leaking over the wheel and everything. And then, interestingly, because of that, we don't have a rack and pinion here. We have a steering gear and all the idler arms and all the mess, and even a little shock, which is leaking, for the steering, just to keep things nicer. This is such an old school design, folks, but this is where you want to be in off-roading. The only off-roading truck that really still has this style, and sorry, Land Cruiser owners, we will mention this word, the Jeep Wrangler still has that, but it is, unfortunately, the rest of that car just falls apart, not like this one. This truck is so clean. I mean, this is, I don't know what coating they have on it. This is a coating, by the way. Such a heavy coating, and is holding so well. I mean, it's even shiny, it's clean, and it's just a beautiful coating. I wish I knew the company that did this, because this is really nice. However, they did go a little overhand and covered everything up. I mean, other than these seals, which by the way are super common on these, this has been done once and now it's again, there is not much that goes on here. Steering components are all tight, we checked it. This car is extremely difficult to lift because of the shape of the frame. Let's speak of the frame, let's look at it. Look at this frame. Looks brand new. It's all coated. There is nothing here. Folks, this is an Illinois car. It's not like some California, no, this is an Illinois car. And you can see the remnants of rust on like pipes like this. You can see that that's crusty. This is an Illinois car, but it's been so well preserved that just nothing. Now you see this, and this is something that the owner has told me about. You see this and you think it's oil leaks. That's actually the coating, because they decided to coat even the transmission, even the transfer case. If you come a little bit further back, I mean, look at this transfer case. It's all coated, and it's just, it gets hot enough where it starts melting that stuff, and now you have all the leaks. Interestingly, something about the Land Cruiser, talked a little bit about the engine, but look where the exhaust comes out. It literally comes out right next to the wheel, and then it goes to the side, then it makes this massive turn, rolls in front of the frame, because the frame is so narrow in the front, and then it widens as it goes back. Extremely difficult to lift this car, especially with this added aftermarket piece that sticks out from the frame. If you see it right here, like this is usually where we put the rack arm, but because we have this thing now, it makes it extremely difficult. And then this is really the section where we want to lift it from, or from here, ideally from here, but we have this in the way. So you have to go here, and just wobbles. It's really difficult. That's why we're doing this video on the drive-on lift. This is so basic, yet it is so complicated because everything is different. You don't have, there's no new car that looks like this today. It does have sway bars, which is pretty cool actually. This is a very high-tech car for its time. Proper four-wheel drive here. And as we make our way to the back, look at this. Locking rear differential, of course. And everything here is so pristine and just really in good shape. I mean, you find a Land Cruiser like this, 80 series, with this kind of miles. I mean, folks, 200,000 miles is nothing for these. But the problem is they rust so bad and things fall apart and things are extremely expensive and hard to find for these. This one is in excellent shape. Rear springs, not leaf springs. This is the Land Cruiser after all. And everything is in such good shape. I can't stop talking about this frame. Look at it. Yes, you do see some remnants of rust here, but again, this is an Illinois car, and the owner doesn't drive it in the winter, but they really, really take care of this, and it shows. Looks like a brand new car underneath here. Whoever coated this truck, except they got a little too heavy on the transmission and everything. I think they did a really good job here because this looks just incredible. I love this. So really, this car is a 95, it has 200,000 miles, and all it needs is seals. And perhaps that shock for the steering. This is incredible. You know, the owner was concerned about some of the leaks. These are not leaks, they're phantom leaks. But this is really the biggest one. And if you've ever done one of these before, it is, for lack of a better word, the biggest mess you'll ever see. And you got to deal with the bearings, you got to deal with everything else while we're at it. Brakes are getting a little low in the front, so maybe we'll address those as well at the same time. But other than this, and that little leak from this shock, which hardly does much to affect the ride and the steering, this doesn't really need much else. This is how reliable these are. So if you're out shopping for one, this is gonna be the kind of truck that you want to buy that looks like this underneath. So folks, this is the 80 series Land Cruiser. And what a beautiful example in a beautiful color, one of my favorite colors for this generation. And these folks, other than rust, They are truly indestructible. Look, as these get older, they're going to need maintenance. They're not going to need repair, but it's not going to be the kind of repair you expect from a car this old. I mean, these were built like tanks. The only thing that comes close to this, perhaps a Lexus LS400, a Lexus LS430, that's even borderline. Even the 100 series is not built as well as these. These are beautiful cars, and this particular one, 200,000 miles. Most cars, 200,000 miles, they need so many stuff, and people are impressed that it has 200,000 miles. The mileage on this is not what's impressive. It's the condition it's in. Folks, this is an old car. To be in this excellent condition and how much love and care went into it by the current owner and the previous owners, it is just a beauty. This is possibly my favorite color. I'm so happy standing next to this, and the whole thing is just my kind of car. Let's put it this way. Folks, I hope this video is helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.